Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us for Mayor Randall Woodfin's Tele-Town Hall with neighborhood leaders and ACE alums. Thank you so much for being on this call today. This will be an opportunity for the mayor to share with you some information about what the city is doing, for you to ask your questions. We will also receive information from Dr. Wes Williford with Jefferson County Health Department. He'll be on the line for us today. Just a reminder, as you have experienced in previous calls with us, and if you're a first-time caller, thank you for being with us. We will be taking your questions during this town hall. You can press 7 on your dial pad. Press 7 on your dial pad. You will be connected immediately to a screener who will take your question and put it in the system where we can see it on our screens, and then we will ask your question to the mayor and those who are on the line. So once again, press 7 on your dial pad. You will be connected immediately to a screener who will put together your question and provide it on the screen so we can answer your question. We will also be polling you today and asking you a few questions about your situation during this pandemic. So we will explain how that works a little bit more in detail as we come up on our first questions. With that, right now, I would like to turn to Mayor Randall Woodfin for opening comments.
Good morning, everybody. This is Mayor Randall Woodfin. I want to first start by thanking you all for being on this call. For those who have been joining us on these calls, I want to welcome you back. And for those that are new to our conversation, we're glad to have you with us this morning. This conversation is mostly centered around our ability to allow you all to ask any questions you have and for us to answer it. So I imagine a majority of our call will be towards Q&A. I hope that you all are maintaining your social distancing, and though it is hard, it's the right thing we should be doing. I know many of you all are probably missing your children, your grandchildren, your friends, your church members, but truthfully, I miss my family and friends too. I actually visited my mom yesterday and only stood outside of the house in the front yard and talked through her while she was standing in her screen door. In addition to that, this has been a very eventful week for the city of Birmingham as it relates to the mayor's office and the city council, doing everything we can to protect our employees. We announced hazard pay for our frontline employees, and we announced some adjustments to city services for the benefits of our employees and for the benefit of continuity of services for the city. As many of you all know, this week we announced that one of our employees tested positive for the COVID-19, and I've been in constant contact with that employee to make sure that they will be okay. In addition to that, my team is done and will continue to do everything we can to keep our employees safe. That is a priority to make sure we balance position to provide services for you all and your neighbors on this call. Now, I know that there may be questions about those services, and I'm prepared to answer any and all of them. Last week, you heard from Jimmy Coleman, the president of the Citizens Advisory Board, and my co-partner in addressing concerns of the neighborhoods. Today, I've invited a graduate of our ACE program, the Academy of Civic Engagement, where we had nearly 500 people graduate from that program and serve as ambassadors and advocates in their neighborhoods. And the person that will be joining us today and this morning is Lisa Williams. In addition to that, I have Dr. Williford with the Jefferson County Health Department on the phone, who I'll now yield the floor to give us an update as it relates to the COVID-19. Dr. Williford.
Thank you so much, Mayor Woodfin. Good morning, everyone. I just want to start off with my comments by saying thanks to everyone for helping as much as you have during this very difficult time. I know this has been very hard to distance ourselves from our families, our friends, our communities, and I just want to thank everyone for making the sacrifice to protect the lives of others in our community. I want to start off by saying just a little bit of an update as to what's going on in Jefferson County and in the state of Alabama. As you may have heard, so far we have 492 reported cases of COVID-19 here in Alabama. Testing is something that's still being worked on throughout the county. There's a total of 2,547 cases in all of Alabama. and we're still seeing more cases. However, I'm hoping that we're seeing some improvement in the numbers. There were new numbers of cases each day, so we're going to be watching those numbers very closely as we go forward. I remain hopeful that what you as a community are doing, I'm hoping that it is working, and we have to hold the line. One thing that I want to talk about briefly is about, since we are coming up on Easter, firstly, I've been seeing reports that we may have bad weather this weekend, so I encourage everyone to make sure that they're as safe as they can and as prepared as they can be in the event of bad weather. But one of the things I think that we've been talking about a lot, and there's been a lot of concern about, is what will happen with Easter services. And I know there's been some talk about drive-up services or other way, kind of different ways of attending a church service. The one bit of caution that I want to give to everyone is to just very carefully think about who you come in contact with. So let's say you're using a drive-up service. Now, if it's your family members, if it's people that are in your house already, that probably is going to be okay. But what I would caution you is that sometimes with COVID-19, we are seeing that people have minimal to no symptoms, and they may not know that they're sick. If you spend an hour in a car with someone and they may be sick and not know it, of course that means the people in the car could become sick as well just because you're together for so long. The other thing that I want to caution people on is if you do decide to use a service like that, think about making sure that you limit that to the people who are in your household. If it's someone who doesn't live in your household who's been separated from you otherwise, it gives another chance for this virus to spread and to affect someone's life. And the last point I want to make is I think there was a story that came out that the Centers for Disease Control published recently that came out of Chicago. It was a family that had unfortunately suffered a death. One person at that funeral ended up having COVID-19. They also went to another get-together after the funeral, and one person ended up causing 16 other people to become infected with COVID-19, and that unfortunately ended up resulting in 3 deaths. Of course, the person who spread the disease had no idea that that's what was happening, but I make that point to illustrate that when we come in contact with others, any time we come in contact with people outside of our home, we're running the risk of spreading this virus further, and that's why I just want to plead for caution when we interact with people, because we don't know where other people have been and we don't know where they're going, and it's just a means of protecting ourselves. With that, I'll end my statement. I just want to say that, I very much appreciate all the sacrifice that everyone has made to protect the lives of our community members.
Thank you, Dr. Williford, for that update on the COVID-19 and reminding us that we have to make wise decisions for the remaining of the month of April and be diligent in how we should interact and, more importantly, not interact with other people. With that, I want to yield the floor to Lisa Williams, who is a part of the ACE program, to share a few words.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. As Mayor Woodfin said, I'm Lisa Williams from District 4, and first I need to thank you, Mayor Woodfin, for having me and allowing these calls for the community where we can gain this valuable information and also have our voices heard. I also want to take this chance to thank all neighborhood officers who have joined on this call and for all that you continue to do in the community as well. I'm not an officer, but I am a passionate advocate for the community like a lot of other people on this call. And as you mentioned, about a year ago, the city did invest in me and some other individuals in your pilot ACE program. So now I plead with you to now have a return on that investment. And thank you again for all that you're doing. And please reach out to me or other ACE members during this challenging time, and so that we can try to help us support the city as best as possible.
Thank you so much, Lisa. And the last team member we have before we get into our Q&A is the mayor of North Birmingham and president of the Citizens Advisory Board, and that's Jimmy Coleman.
Morning, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. I just want to thank you for your leadership. Thank you for just looking out for the residents and neighbors of Birmingham. and that we just want to just let the neighborhood leaders know that we're still active, we're still doing what we're supposed to do. That's look out for each other, and we'll get back to CAB meeting sometime whenever some of this stuff is all over with, and that we just want everyone just to be safe and just continue to work in the neighborhoods. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. President. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we will spend the rest of our time on this call engaging in questions and answers. I will now yield back to Rick Journey, who will guide us through this next part of our call together.
Thank you, Mayor. Once again, I'll remind folks we have a number of calls that have been posted or questions have been posted. We're going to begin with those. Just a reminder, if you have a question during this call, press 7 on your dial pad. You will be immediately connected with a screener. Our screeners will take your question and put them into the system so that we can see them and we can answer them while we're on the call. We also have a poll, and I'm going to start with this before we take our first question. We're going to ask a variety of questions just where we can get to know who all is on the line, your level of participation in neighborhood programs, and also your situation during this pandemic. Our first question that we are asking on this call deals with your participation in neighborhood programs. What neighborhood programs have you participated in the last year? Press 1 for Neighborhood Association Officer. Press 2 for ACE program. Again, what neighborhood programs have you participated in the last year? Press 1 for Neighborhood Officer. Press 2 for ACE program. We're going to keep this question open for about 2 minutes, and then we will close it out, and we'll move on to our next topic. Our first question, Mayor, from our callers: why are motorcycle clubs allowed to remain open?
Motorcycle clubs should not be open, and if anyone is aware of a motorcycle club, please call your precinct. West Precinct phone number is 205-254-2682. East Precinct phone number is 205-254-2684. And North Precinct phone number is 205-254-2860. If any of you all are aware of that type of activity and you see it, or if you see any type of activity you think is in violation, please call your precinct.
Thank you, Mayor. Our next question, it's two parts. Should the postman be wearing gloves to deliver mail, and should restaurant employees wear gloves too?
Dr. Williford, I'll yield to you to answer that, sir.
Sure. Gloves are kind of an interesting thing because in some sense, gloves can actually lead you into a false sense of security. You think that you're wearing gloves, that you're actually safer. Now, it may protect a person, but if you're talking about handling bags of food that are being handed to someone, it actually kind of decreases the chances of a person washing their hands. Now, obviously, gloves and proper hand hygiene have to be used while preparing food, but the gloves, as far as a mail delivery person or other people, they may not be all that helpful because they often serve as a barrier against people washing their hands. They wear them thinking that their hands are perfectly clean, but what's happening is you're wearing a glove that's becoming more and more contaminated as you work. So the gloves really aren't all that necessary as long as you're using good hand hygiene.
Thank you, Dr. Williford. Our next question, this person says he's tired of stray dogs. What can we do about stray dogs in the Pratt City area?
So stray dogs is a very interesting topic. I think what we have, this is one of those city services that I want to talk to you all about as neighborhood officers, because I'm going to need your help in communicating this. During the COVID-19, it seems to be that a lot of our partners have changed, or I guess not only changed, but restricted some of the services they provide. So one of those partners is the Humane Society of Greater Birmingham. They are only taking priority calls. They're only taking priority animals as it relates to their intake process during the COVID-19. They have a list of what's defined as priority. The number one thing is if someone has been, there's a bite Two, if there's a cruelty situation in place, and there are a few other things that relate to priority calls or priority type styles they're picking up. That means the city of Birmingham and other cities in Jefferson County have seen an increase in some of the calls we're receiving as it relates to what's happening in some of our streets with stray animals. My suggestion would be to continue to call 311, but unfortunately, based on what the Humane Society of Greater Birmingham is doing, it is limiting the city of Birmingham capacity to engage in every stray animal and to respond in an aggressive way to every call.
Thank you, Mayor. Before we ask our next question, I would like to wrap up the poll question we have right now. I'll ask it one more time if you haven't responded. It concerns participation in neighborhood programs. What neighborhood programs have you participated in the last year? Press 1 for Neighborhood Association Officer. Press 2 for ACE program. We're going to close this request in 15 seconds. We'll go to another poll question right after that. Mayor, we have our next question. Is there a call to implement a citywide ordinance for residential rent and mortgage suspension? Will you do something along those lines for the duration of COVID?
Unfortunately, that is not in my purview as mayor. The good news is I will go locally first. As it relates to the eviction side, the sheriff's office 3 weeks ago agreed not to be doing any evictions during this time. In addition to that, the governor did a temporary moratorium on eviction filings. Property owners that have received a federal subsidy or have a federally backed mortgage loan cannot evict or charge late penalties for any tenants who cannot pay rent. So there has been a freeze on evictions from the federal, state, and local level. That does not mean people shouldn't pay their rent if they can. It simply means that people have fallen on hard times. They'll be given more time over the next 100 to 120 days to pay their rent.
All right, thank you, Mayor. We will move on to our next poll question briefly, so we can ask that, get you started answering those questions, and then we'll come back to our callers' questions. Our next poll question, stand by one moment. This up. Next poll question, do you feel that your neighborhood is receiving adequate information regarding COVID-19? Do you feel your neighborhood is receiving adequate information regarding COVID-19? Press 1 for yes and press 2 for no. Once again, press 1 for yes, press 2 for no. Do you feel your neighborhood is receiving adequate information regarding COVID-19? Our next question, Mayor, comes from an ACE alum. If you are sitting in your car in a public area or in the driveway, can an officer arrest you during this time?
No. Let me make this clear. The only reason people should be out of their homes is for the following things: to engage in a purchase of an essential service, grocery, pharmacy, gas. In addition to that, the only other thing that people should be out for is the doctor's office or going to work. No one else should be out. So if you're just sitting in your car somewhere in a parking lot, that's not any of those things, an officer can and will engage you, but you won't be arrested. You'll receive what's called a non-custodial. You'll be given a non-custodial arrest, which is a summons to appear in court at a later date. There's no need for any of you on this phone or any of your neighbors or any citizens of our city to be given a fine because you don't want to be in compliance of what the law is at the local and state level. I'm still convinced if we try to tiptoe around this law, this ordinance, then the longer we'll have to be in this shelter in place. If all of us comply, then the quicker we can get back to what we know.
Thank you, Mayor. Our next question, can the city councilors send out the number of confirmed cases in our neighborhoods?
No, but what I can do for you all is get an update from the Jefferson County Health Department as it relates to the number of people that have taken the test by zip code. Now, as it relates to who's tested positive or whose test came back negative, that's a different conversation. I'm not sure how that information can be shared. As many of you all know, since the first day a case was announced in the state of Alabama, they didn't announce city or neighborhood. They announced by county. It was Montgomery County. And then when the second case came in our state, they didn't say which of the 30-plus cities in Jefferson County. They just said Jefferson County. And each day there have been cases. They're only naming cases by county. So to answer that, we won't be receiving who's tested positive by a neighborhood or by city. You'll be receiving who's tested positive by county. But we can tell you by zip code who's actually taking the test.
Our next question. For homes who had utilities disconnected prior to COVID-19, will the utility company restore utilities or place them on a payment plan?
Well, that's an interesting question because let me say I don't know the answer to that. The reason I don't know the answer to that is because the utilities have been extremely explicit on a daily basis in sharing that for your current utility bill, as it relates to not being in a position to pay it, please engage us, call our customer service hotline, and we will work with you, meaning they won't cut it off. If it's already cut off prior to the COVID-19, I would suggest to that customer, please call that utility company and engage them, but I'm not sure what their answer would be to you.
Before we ask our next question, I'm going to remind folks of the current poll question we have. You'll have 15 seconds after I read it to answer if you haven't already. Then we will close that one and move on to their next poll. The question is, do you feel that your neighborhood is receiving adequate information regarding COVID-19? Press 1 for yes. Press 2 for no. You have 15 seconds to respond, and we will close that question and move to the next. Mayor, we have a question for you now. What is the city doing for small businesses in the area? Her landlord, this person says her landlord is still requesting rent. Do you offer any resources to support first-time business owners?
The City of Birmingham engaged, now let's take the first part of the question first. The City of Birmingham engaged the private sector in corporate Birmingham in supporting a bridge to support existing small businesses where small businesses can apply for and receive up to a 180-day loan that they wouldn't have to pay back with no interest. In addition to that, the rent question is the same. The question earlier dealt with evictions and moratorium on rent payment. I don't see any situation where a governor or the federal government of any of the federal government for the United States or a governor, particularly in the South, will give a moratorium on paying mortgage or rent. However, the moratorium on evictions applies not only for residential, it also applies for commercial rent. So, and that is attached to if you have a mortgage that is federally backed, such as Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac. In addition to that, if it's backed by any type of federal program, for your commercial, it's the same thing, but you would have to check with your landlord or the property owner to see how that is managed. I think the good news is, even if this person is still recommending that, you may want to show them what the federal law is saying as far as giving people more time while we're in this COVID-19 situation to be allowed to have extended time to pay their rent payments.
Thank you, Mayor. The next question, this one says, why won't the City of Birmingham partner with UAB to purchase equipment for the 15-minute test concerning COVID-19?
Well, I think the initial conversation started with UAB and the health department in making sure we got testing sites within our city limits. And so we are now in the middle of the 4th week of the COVID-19. I believe those first 2 weeks there were no testing sites within our city limits. We now have 3 testing sites in our city limits, one on the east, south, and west side of town. As it relates to the 15-minute test, the city of Birmingham doesn't have a problem partnering with anybody as it relates to testing. But as it relates to this question in partnering with UAB, we just spoke to Dr. Will Fernandy. Today is Thursday. I just spoke to Dr. Will Fernandy on a 15-minute call Tuesday, and as it relates to them needing the city's help for the 15-minute test, he did not bring that up or share that we need to move in that direction.
All right, thank you, Mayor. Our next question deals with the recycle program. What is the plan with it? Will it be restarted when everything is back to normal?
The goal, let me start with the current. As of this week, with all of our routes, minus 2 of them, this is the last week that we would have picked up recycling. Starting next week, we are suspending our recycling program, which is 1 day a week, every Wednesday, with the exception of 2 routes that are part of a pilot program that touch about 4 or 5 neighborhoods and 4 city council districts. It does not touch the entire neighborhood for each of those. It touches mainly the routes. These 2 routes make up about 2,000 plus households. So their pilot program includes a uniform trash can and a uniform recycle can. For those 2 routes, trash will be picked up only 1 day a week, and recycling will only be picked up 1 day a week. For the remaining routes that exist throughout the city, trash will continue to be picked up 2 days a week, and we are temporarily suspending picking up recycling for those remaining routes. We do want to be in a position when the COVID-19 is over to start this program back up. In addition to that, what we want us to do is to relieve some of the anxiety and fear, stress, and physical toll on the public works employees who have seen a minimum of a 25% increase in trash pickup on those 2 days a week that they currently pick up trash. And so we're moving our public works employees instead of 5 8s to 4 10s, meaning we wanted to give each of our public works employees 3 days off during this time instead of only 2 days off.
Thank you, Mayor. That's a good time for us to lead to our next poll question for everyone. Would you be willing to purchase a trash can to place your garbage in so that sanitation workers don't have to handle bags? Again, the question, would you be willing to purchase a trash can to place your garbage in so that sanitation workers don't have to handle bags? Press 1 if your answer is, I already placed my trash in a can. Press 2 if your answer is, yes, I am willing to purchase one if asked. Press 3 if no, I will not purchase a trash can. Again, I'll read this one. Would you be willing to purchase a trash can to place your garbage in so that sanitation workers don't have to handle bags? Press 1 for I already placed my trash in a can. Press 2 for yes, I am willing to purchase one if asked. And press 3, no, I will not purchase a trash can. We will keep this question open for 2 minutes as we move to our next question from callers. Mayor, this next question, are the garbage collectors included in those that receive hazardous pay?
Yes.
Our next question, what kind of resources are available for essential workers who may come in contact with COVID?
What kind of resources are available for essential workers? Well, as you're referring to City of Birmingham employees, we've done a few things outside of hazard pay. We've created makeshift barriers for anyone that has to come into City Hall to conduct business. So there is no actual, that physical barrier helps decrease the chance of actually passing anything. In addition to that, we've opened up all of our doors to make sure, inside the building, to make sure there's less hands that are touching doorknobs. In addition to that, we put hand sanitizer inside and outside of our elevators, as well as the internal cleaning crew engages on an hourly basis of sanitizing doorknobs, light switches, elevator buttons, and everything else in the building. And separate from that, we've hired a third-party professional cleaning crew that does a deep clean on a weekly basis.
Thank you, Mayor. Our next question, what are citizens allowed to do and are prohibited from doing under the new shelter-in-place ordinance?
Citizens are allowed to leave their house to get food. They're allowed to leave their house to get medication as it relates to pharmacy. They're allowed to leave their house to get gas, see their doctor, go to work if their job is still open and deemed essential, and go to the bank. They're allowed to do solitary activities such as walking, biking, or running in parks. Those are the things you're allowed to do. Everything else is prohibited.
Mayor, our next question, will we get a heads up on when we can start having meetings again? We would like advance notice.
I'll try to give you as much advance notice as I can.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to ask this question one more time, this poll question, and then we will close this one out. The question is, would you be willing to purchase a trash can to place your garbage in so that sanitation workers don't have to handle bags? Press 1 for I already placed my trash in a can. Press 2 for yes, I am willing to purchase one if asked. Press 3, no, I will not purchase a trash can. You have 15 seconds to answer if you've not already done so, and then we will close out that question. Now let's move to our next questions from our callers. When do we foresee a transition for people getting back to work?
Everybody, that is a wait-and-see approach. My gut tells me if we do everything we're supposed to in April, maybe we can loosen restrictions in May. If some of us want to continue to be hard-headed and have our house parties, kick it, have people in our household who don't live in our household inside our house, and still do some of the activities because we think we are immune to it, but people still get it, then you can see this extended to May.
All right, thank you, Mayor. So our next question, what is the current police precinct schedule? I am unable to reach anyone.
The current police precinct schedule has not changed during the COVID situation. The precincts have access to them by phone every 24 hours. I believe with 3 of the precincts, I just gave you the numbers. If there is a problem reaching a precinct, please call the mayor's office and we'll make sure you get the access you need.
Thank you, Mayor. Let me go on and open up our next poll question. What is the best way to provide your neighborhood information regarding COVID-19? Once again, what is the best way to provide your neighborhood information regarding COVID-19? Press 1 for by phone call, press 2 by text, press 3 by email, press 3 by email, and press 4 by mail. Again, the question, what is the best way to provide your neighborhood information regarding COVID-19? Press 1 for by phone call, press 2 by text, press 3 by email, press 4 by mail. We will keep this question open for about 2 minutes, and then we will remind you before we close it out if you have not responded. Mayor, our next question, will the program feeding kids from the school system continue on the remainder of the school year?
Yes, there's going to be a program that's supposed to start next week with Kickstart for the remaining of the 6 weeks of school, of the remaining of 2 weeks in April and the 4 weeks in May.
Thank you, Mayor. Our next question concerns refusal for deliveries from restaurants and stores. Can something be done with that? They deliver in some areas but not others.
This is a pre-COVID situation. You got 2 situations here. You have restaurants that, and you have food places that have their own delivery system, and then you have certain companies that deliver as well. Certain people deliver based on a geographical area where they are and how many miles they're willing to go outside of that restaurant. And in addition to that, others deliver based on, I'm not sure what their formula is. Let me answer the question. City government, there's nothing we can do about that but encourage them to expand their delivery route or their delivery area. We have no problem in my office encouraging that, but I'm not sure what businesses or certain restaurants the caller is referring to. But if they want to go into any detail, please reach out to our office.
This next question is for Dr. Williford. Is there a risk of a person still having COVID-19 or carrying COVID-19 after they have recovered?
That's a good question. So in general, if a person has recovered, meaning that they have had improvement in their symptoms, that they have not had a fever in at least 3 days, that their chance of transmitting the disease goes down remarkably. That's something that's still being studied a lot right now, is trying to understand that. But in general, if a person has recovered, they should not be considered contagious, and if anything, they may actually be protected from future infection of the person who's been infected. So I would say in general, a person who's recovered should not be considered contagious.
Thank you, Dr. Williford. Okay, we're getting ready for our next question. Before we get to our next question, let me ask our current poll question one more time. What is the best way to provide your neighborhood information regarding COVID-19? Press 1 for by phone call, press 2 by text, and press 3 by email, press 4 by mail. We will have 15 more seconds to answer that question before we close that poll question out. So our next question, and I believe I'll post this, I think, and we'll see if we need to get clarification. Are people working for the city legal? Is it legal for people working for the city, I think, at this time?
Yes. City employees, state employees, federal employees, government employees are deemed essential. I'd like to remind the leaders on this phone call, you all have an expectation and a dependency, and when you put out your trash, that the city of Birmingham is supposed to pick it up. That if you have an issue and you call 911, someone's supposed to pick up the phone. And if you need a police officer, a paramedic, or a fire truck, someone is supposed to come. Or if you have an issue dealing with a permit or business, you should be able to do that. And so, yes, it is very legal for us to be working right now. We are deemed as essential of giving you all some sense of normalcy and providing services for the residents of the city of Birmingham.
Our next question, are public events in Tuscaloosa, or all public events, rather, in Tuscaloosa were canceled until May 30th. Will Mayor Woodfin implement the same for Birmingham?
As of today, no. I think you all, our order is until April 30th. I think when we get closer to the end of April, based on our continued conversations with Jefferson County Health Department, based on other CDC guidelines, we will make decisions for May. But at this point, everything we've suggested has been to April 30th.
Mayor, our next question deals with homelessness in public places. Piggly Wiggly on First Avenue, the homeless are there outside, and people are outside in a line for safety. What can be done to inform them of doing spacing of 6 feet?
We can always reach out to the leadership of Piggly Wiggly management team and ask them to enforce social distancing as it relates to those that are in line.
Okay, our next question, is it okay to have virtual meetings?
Well, it depends on what level of government. If you're referring to the neighborhood level, let me get an answer back to you all, and that can be email, or certain calls can be made to CAB so that information can be filtered down on an adequate answer. I know the governor did give exceptions to county commissions, city council, and school boards as it relates to having virtual meetings. If it's related to COVID-19, but I'm not sure what the other exceptions are, or if those exceptions filter all the way down. I would think so, but I wouldn't be sure if a neighborhood was meeting, would it be COVID related?
We have two questions that are back to back, and we've discussed this previously. The first question I'll ask: how do we prevent apartment complexes from evicting residents, and who can we report evictions to if they are still happening?
Again, evictions should not be happening at this point. Jefferson County Sheriff's Office has been explicit of saying they won't be evicting anyone in Jefferson County of any of the cities while the COVID-19 is in place. The governor, March 31st, this past Friday, I believe, issued an order. Part of that order was a moratorium on evictions as well for the entire state.
The other part of that question is, will rent payments be postponed during the crisis?
As of today, the answer is no. But people, and based on who your rent is with, right? So if your rent is with any organization that receives a federal subsidy, such as Section 8, public housing, a mortgage that deals with Freddie Mae or Freddie Mac, and things of that nature, then you're giving a longer window to pay your rent. Doesn't mean you're not supposed to, it's just you're giving a longer time. I would like to suggest if you can pay is to do so, because that's supporting the economy. But if you have fallen on hard times, then I suggest that people reach out to their actual landlord or who owns the property to see what they can work out. So paying rent or the ability not to pay rent is at today separate from being evicted. No one can be evicted at this time.
I'm gonna ask this question. I think we need some more detail. So if the person who asked this could call back to the screener, press 7 and call back to the screener, you might be able to provide more detail if we're not asking it correctly. The question is, how can we address the issue of businesses, particularly public storages, that are not working with the public? I'm not sure if that means that they're not open right now or what. So if that person can press 7 and call back in, you might be able to explain a little bit more what you mean, and we will come back to that question. Due to the threat of potential tornado watches this weekend, what are we going to do in regards to our safe rooms and storm shelters?
It's the same. Nothing's changed as it relates to our safe rooms. In an ideal world, we don't have to use them. But if they need to be, we will implement the same protocol we do if there's a storm.
And Mr. Mayor, I can add, because as Director of Communications, I talked with Birmingham Fire and Rescue a good bit on this matter. They have the same protocol set in place for this. They will be enforcing the 6-foot rule as far as, social distancing of 6 feet, and that will be enforced inside the safe rooms as well. Let me move on to our next question. Just one moment. Again, this is asking the question about how long we're going to last here. I know that's a popular question for everybody. In the foreseeable future, is it expected that the stay-at-home order will be extended?
I hope not.
Our next question. What are we supposed to do about kids playing in the neighborhood? What do we tell parents?
This is a very interesting question. In an ideal world, we know our neighbors, and we can encourage our neighbors that their children are free to play in their front yard or backyard, but we don't.
Here's what I found.
We don't necessarily want them playing with other children who are not a part of their same household. So just encouraging them and reminding them that this COVID-19 is pretty seriously. That's what I would suggest. Now, that's some pretty PG language, and I would hope that we can all keep it PG. But if you needing to be a little bit more plain spoken language with your neighbors, I'd suggest you talk directly to them, helping others understand to take this seriously.
Mayor, our next question, first wants to commend Public Works employees for their service. It goes on to say, what can we do as residents to help protect Public Works employees as they clean up our city?
So, your trash. If you're currently putting it out in bags only, I would like to encourage the people on this phone to buy an actual trash can. Please. And encourage your neighbors to purchase an actual trash can. There is so much fear and anxiety among our Public Works employees as it relates to picking up trash in bags. And with the increase of people working from home, with the increase of children being at home because school is being done remotely now, there's an overwhelming uptick in residential refuge. So you all would be doing those Public Works employees a great service in relieving a lot of anxiety if you put your trash in an actual trash can or trash bin instead of a plastic bag.
Stand by while we load a few more questions. Okay, our next question, if you want to volunteer with organizations like Kickstarter, can you do so during this time?
I would believe so. For Kickstart, I would encourage you to engage the school system because that, you know what, you can engage us too. The answer is yes. Please just reach out to the mayor's office or Alice Williams and we will follow up. In addition to that, there are other things you can do to engage United Way by dialing 211. But for Kickstart, just the mayor's office is fine. We can help you with that.
Our next question, is it okay to do gardening at your own home during this time?
Yes.
Stand by while I load my next question. Can we put 2 garbage cans out since we have more trash coming out of our homes? And can we purchase a second from the city?
No. If we had them from you to purchase from, I would say yes. The first question, can you put a second trash can out? Absolutely. The question, can you purchase from us? No.
Okay. Our next question, stand by. This one also is dealing with trash. Is there a current ordinance concerning trash cans, requiring trash cans?
There is not a current ordinance that requires trash cans. But the pulse of this community is on this phone. And if the folk on this phone would bag the city of Birmingham transitioning from bags to moving to what other cities in the entire state of Alabama and the Southeast do, which is uniform trash bins, if the folk on this phone would support that, then I know the city of Birmingham residents would support it as well.
One other trash can question. Can you clarify about specific cans? Will they pick those up manually? Is there any specific can that they would be required if they wanted to pick it up?
I'm going to let Kevin Moore, our Chief of Operations, get into some nuance and detail of this answer.
Okay. Good morning. The major concern we have is to make sure that your garbage can that you purchase does not exceed a 35-gallon can. Once they exceed that size, it's harder for our refuse collectors to pick those up. And the heavier the can, the more damage it does to our workers. So if you could, please make sure your cans are below 35 gallons. That's our major request.
Stand by 1 second as we move to our next question. Okay, our next question, do you foresee a total city lockdown?
A total city lockdown would preclude you from being able to go get food, the bank, and pharmacy. So the answer to that is no.
Stand by 1 second. I've got a couple of requests. This is back again on trash and garbage cans. Can we advise Public Works to be careful in throwing garbage cans after they're emptied. It becomes expensive. They have gone through about 4 cans. Could you ask workers to be more cautious with cans when picking up trash?
I would definitely ask them to be cautious when they're picking it up. But here, to everybody on this phone, this conversation around uniform trash cans would mean the following. Our employees would no longer actually pick them up physically. We would use a lift because everyone would have the same type of trash bin or trash can. That doesn't mean any employees will be laid off. Everyone will still keep their job. But having uniform trash cans or uniform trash bins throughout our city would mean that you wouldn't have to worry about any damage to your trash can because a lift would pick up your trash can, not an actual employee.
Is the city doing anything regarding disinfecting and sanitizing outside of city facilities to clean areas such as bus stops?
Bus stops would be probably left to the transit authority. So the city of Birmingham is not cleaning bus stops.
There's a question that we're following up on. Someone said, is there anything available to assist an elderly person that has issues?
Absolutely. Please tell that person to call the mayor's office so we can assist them.
Stand 1 second. Just a minute. I'm trying to pull up a question and it got stubborn with me on my computer. Can you provide an update from the city's efforts on the U.S. Census?
Yeah, so we will continue to, we're in an interesting balancing act here. I think we want to encourage people at this point, if they can't do their census without needing assistance, we encourage them to do so. But our plan to actually get out here in the field, engaging at the community level, the grassroots level, has been hampered by the COVID-19 like any other city in America. So we're waiting to see when can we get that effort started. In addition to that, I believe there's been some conversation as it relates to the census as far as the current date possibly being moved back if that hasn't already been decided.
With that, Mayor, due to time, we have a number of questions that we're going to follow up with, but that's going to conclude our questions at this time. Just a reminder, a couple of things for folks on this line before we get final comments from the Mayor. If you can, before the end of the day, you can go to birminghamal.gov/coronavirus. We will post this phone call there. The audio file is very large, so it takes a little time for us to upload it to the system. But as soon as we have it, we will post it at birminghamal.gov/coronavirus. It'll be the first one on the Tele-Town Hall's link where you can find it. You can re-listen to this, or you can share this with friends and neighbors who may not have been on this call. So I wanted to remind you of that. If you have additional questions, press 7. Please stay on the line after this call is complete, and we will still track your questions and follow up with you. Thank you very much for all your participation, and with that, I will turn back to Mayor Woodfin for some closing remarks.
Well, I want to first start by thanking Dr. Williford with the Jefferson County Health Department for being on this call and giving us an update, as well as Lisa Williams with ACE, the Academy of Civic Engagement, and the Mayor of North Birmingham and President of the Citizens Advisory Board, Mr. Jimmy Coleman, for his leadership among other leaders as it relates to our neighborhood leaders. Which leads me to the remaining people on this call. Thank all of you for being leaders. You all have a platform. You all have a voice. You all have people that listen to you, and you all have people who will follow you. Please take all of that and encourage people to practice social distancing. That at this point, it's not just about not going out, but it's also about not allowing folk who are not a part of your household in your house. We got to do what we need to do in the month of April if we want to get back to our normal way of life in May. With these remaining 21 days in this month, now is the time to do everything that's necessary, which means restricting ourselves of leaving our homes, but for food and other essential things. And just hunker down. We don't like it. None of us want to do it. but I'm encouraged that if we do it, the faster we get back to our way of life. So thank you all for continuing to lead. Thank you all for continuing to remain safe. Thank you all for using your platform and your voice and sharing with others who listen and follow you that this is what we must do. Please have a great Easter weekend. I know many of you all, this will be your first time in 30, 40, 50, 60, and 70 years not attending church on Easter Sunday. But we will get through this. There are other creative ways that I imagine your faith leaders are creating to make sure you have some interaction with your other members of your congregation or your parishioners. But take the time to spend with your own family this weekend. Everyone be safe. Take care.
Once again, thank you everybody for joining us for this Tele-Town Hall with Mayor Woodfin. We appreciate your response to our poll questions. We appreciate your cooperation and taking the time to ask questions for us. Once again, a reminder, we will have this audio recording posted at birminghamal.gov/coronavirus later today. If you go to birminghamal.gov/coronavirus and scroll down to the Tele-Town Hall section of the page, you will find this along with other Tele-Town Halls we have held. And if you have additional questions, press 7. Screeners will still be on the line, and you can post your question, and we will follow up as soon as possible. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful day, and thanks for being with us. Thanks for what you do for our community.